Hello, my dear listeners. My name is Evelyn Carter, but around here folks just call me Miss Evie. I'm 66 years old, born and raised in the quiet Appalachian town of Maple Hollow, West Virginia. A place where the mountains cradle your every step and neighbors wave, whether they know your name or not. You'd never think something dark could grow in a place so peaceful. But it did. Inside my home, there are things a mother should never have to do for her own child. And yet I did them. I stayed silent for decades. I made excuses. I turned pain into patience and fear into faith. Until one ordinary Tuesday, when a plate of stew hit the floor, I finally woke up. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. I married young, 19 years old, to Thomas Carter, a mechanic who worked at the coal mine repair shop. Greasy hands, yes, but a heart cleaner than spring water. We weren't rich, but we were full. Full of hope. Full of laughter. Full of love. For a while, at least. For nearly 7 years, we tried to have a child. Every negative test crushed us. But when I turned 26, the Lord gave us Matthew, my miracle boy, born on a snowy morning in January 1985. He came into this world silent and wide-eyed, and I swore I'd protect him with everything in me. And maybe that was my first mistake. From the time Matthew could walk, he was the center of our world. The best toys, the warmest clothes. If I had an apple, he got the best slice. When he cried, I was there. When he stumbled, I caught him. When he failed, I fixed it. Thomas, my husband, used to say, "You can't shield him from life forever, Evie." But I thought I could. Or at least I thought I should. But the world has a way of catching up. By the time Matthew was 20, Thomas was urging him to find work. He tried here and there, short stints at the gas station, stocking shelves at the general store, but always quit. Always had an excuse. The boss was rude. The hours were unfair. The pay was too low. And every time I defended him. "He's figuring himself out, Tom. Be patient." I was patient. Too patient. By 35, Matthew still lived at home. No job. No bills. No plans. And then, in 2016, Thomas passed suddenly, collapsed on our porch while fixing a screen door. The doctor said it was his heart. But I knew it was years of carrying the weight of a house that was never truly his. Matthew cried at the funeral. He held my hand and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of you now." But he didn't. Within months, Matthew began controlling the pension I received from Thomas. "You're not good with money, Mom," he told me one morning, pulling my debit card from my wallet. At first, I laughed, until I realized he wasn't joking. Soon, I had to ask permission to buy soap. When I wanted to visit my best friend, Miss Ruby, who lived just 2 doors down, he'd say, "Why do you need to leave the house? Don't you have chores?" I became invisible in my own home. It was a Wednesday, late March, windy and cold. I remember because I had just gotten over the flu, and my hands were still shaking. I made Matthew's favorite, beef stew with cornbread. As I ladled it into his bowl, a small splash hit the table. He snapped. "You can't even serve food right, old woman?" Then he threw the bowl to the floor. The stew scattered. The bowl shattered. And then he pointed to the mess. "Clean it. On your knees." I stared at him, hoping, begging for him to realize what he was doing. But his eyes were like stone. And I knelt. That night, I didn't sleep. Something inside me broke, but not in the way he thought. Not into fear. It broke open into resolve. Because that stew wasn't just food. It was my final humiliation. And while Matthew snored in the next room, I sat in the dark with a notebook and a pen and began my plan. He thought I was weak. But I had something he didn't. Time, memory, and knowledge. And I was going to use all 3. If you're listening today, I want to thank you for sticking with me. Telling this story hasn't been easy, but it's necessary. because silence is what kept me trapped for so long. Where we left off, I had just knelt in stew, broken on my kitchen floor. But what Matthew didn't know was that he hadn't broken me, he had awakened something. And just a few days later, while sweeping under the hallway table, I found it. A voice recorder. It was old, probably something Thomas used in his repair shop for taking notes. Still working. Still had batteries. I stared at it for a long time before an idea started to form. What if I recorded everything? Matthew thought I was senile, slow, useless. But he forgot. I worked as a bookkeeper for 20 years before I got married. I knew how to log, document, organize. And so, that night, while he slept, I slipped the recorder under the cushion of the armchair in the living room. I hit a record. The light blinked red. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. It had begun. Over the next 12 days, I recorded everything. The name calling. You're just a parasite, Mom. The control. Ask me before you leave the house. The threats. One day, you'll regret crossing me. Every word was logged with time and date in a little notebook I kept in my bra. When I did laundry, I recorded. When I cooked, I recorded. When he lashed out, I recorded. It was like playing a role. I was the same obedient mother on the outside, but inside, I was building a case. One morning, after Matthew left to pick up cigarettes, I took a bus to the town library. They had free Wi-Fi and, more importantly, privacy. There, on a borrowed computer, I Googled how to report elder abuse with evidence. That search led me to Sister Alma, a retired social worker who volunteered at the Maple Hollow Women's Shelter. I called her from the payphone next to the diner. "Come in person," she said, "and bring what you have." The next day I did. Sister Alma was short, gray-haired, with a face that looked like it had seen everything and survived it all. When I played one of the recordings for her, she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "You've got him. All you need now is your moment." She introduced me to a lawyer, Miriam Soto, who helped me understand my rights. She said with this kind of documentation, not only could I get a restraining order, I could potentially press charges. But she warned me, he might sense something. Be careful. Act normal. Keep gathering. And so I did. It was a Saturday. Rain was tapping on the kitchen window. I had just finished making rice and fried cabbage when Matthew came in. "Cabbage again? Are you trying to poison me?" Before I could respond, he slammed his plate onto the floor, scattering food everywhere. Then he looked at me with those same eyes, the ones that once held joy when he was a child, but now only held bitterness. "You know the drill, old woman. On your knees." And I did. But this time, the recorder was running, clearly picking up everything. And this time, I wasn't crying from fear. I was crying from relief. Because this would be the nail in his coffin. That night, I hid in the laundry room and played back the recording. It was perfect. Crystal clear. Even the sound of the plate shattering could be heard. Then I heard something unexpected. A low murmur. Another voice. It wasn't Matthew's. It was deeper. Different. Almost a whisper. "Mom." I froze. I rewound. Played it again. "Mom." But I was alone in that room. And Matthew had never said that softly. Was it on the tape? Or was it something else? If you're here with me again, thank you. It means more than you know. This story isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to every mother, every grandmother, every woman who's ever been silenced in her own home. When we left off, I had just discovered something strange, a voice on my recording that wasn't my son's. A soft whisper. "Mom." It wasn't anger. It wasn't controlled. It sounded like sadness, like longing. And it took me back, way back, to a part of my heart I hadn't visited in years. The next morning, I went into the attic. I hadn't been up there since Thomas's funeral. It still smelled like dust, wood, and time. Under the loose floorboard near the back window was a small metal box, Thomas's lockbox. I had forgotten it even existed. It was cold in my hands, like it had been waiting for me. The key was still taped under the lid of our old sewing table, exactly where Thomas used to hide it. I opened the box, expecting to find maybe birth certificates, old photos, a deed. But what I found made my knees buckle. Inside were handwritten letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me. None ever sent, written in Thomas's steady, careful handwriting. The earliest was dated January 12th, 2015, just over a year before he passed. Evie, I'm writing this down because I don't know how to say it out loud. I see what's happening to our boy, and it scares me. I love Matthew, but something's wrong. He looks at you like you're furniture, not family. Each letter tracked what Thomas had seen and feared. Tonight, he raised his voice again. I told him to lower it, and he just stared at me, dead in the eyes, like I wasn't even there. I think I made a mistake. I think we both did. We gave him everything, and now he thinks he owns everything, including you. The last letter was never dated, but the ink had bled, like he'd cried while writing it. If I don't wake up tomorrow, promise me you won't let him take over. Promise me you'll fight for yourself. You've always been stronger than you know. Reading those letters shattered something in me, but not in a painful way. It was like a veil had been lifted. Thomas had seen it all. He hadn't been blind. He just hadn't known how to stop it. And now, years later, I could finally answer the question he asked in that last note. Yes, Thomas. I'm fighting. The next day, I brought the letters to Sister Alma. She sat with me in the shelter's quiet room, reading through each one with tears in her eyes. Evie, she said, this is more than evidence. This is a voice from the grave backing up your story. With the recordings, the photographs, and now the letters, my lawyer Miriam said we were ready to file for a protection order and potentially press criminal charges. We set the court date for the following week. That Sunday night, as I was setting down a cup of tea, the phone rang. The landline. The one Matthew forgot I still had tucked away in my sewing room. I answered. Silence. Then a voice. Miss Evelyn Carter?
Yes.
Who is this? This is Officer Lang from the Maple Hollow PD. I'm calling about your son, Matthew Carter. My heart stopped. He was involved in a disturbance outside a gas station on Route 29. We need you to come down to identify some belongings. Is he hurt? He's not here, ma'am. He fled the scene before officers arrived, but he left something behind. What was it? The officer paused. I could hear papers rustling. A small black notebook, with your name written on the cover. Thank you for being here, truly. By now, you know my name, Evelyn Carter, but what you might not know is how terrifying it is to feel like your past has started following you. In the last chapter of this journey, the police called to say my son, Matthew, had fled a scene near a gas station. He left behind a small black notebook, with my name on the cover. I didn't know what I feared more, what was written inside, or what else he'd left behind. I arrived at the Maple Hollow Police Department early Monday morning. I hadn't slept. I held Thomas's final letter in my purse like a shield. The officer, a young man named Lang, met me at the front desk and led me to a small, windowless room. On the metal table was the notebook.
Closed.
Untouched. We haven't read it yet, Officer Lang said. Since it has your name on it, it may be personal. My fingers trembled as I reached for it. The cover was cracked, worn around the edges. Inside, in Matthew's messy handwriting, were pages and pages of journal entries. Some entries were ramblings, angry thoughts,
Blame.
resentment, but others, I know she's watching me now, writing things down, maybe even recording. She thinks I don't notice, but I hear her whispering when she thinks I'm not listening. Last week, I found the old recorder under the couch. I left it. I wanted to see how far she'd go. My blood ran cold. He knew. He wanted me to keep recording.
But why?
I turned to a bookmarked page. one he had dog-eared. If she wants to play games, I'll play better. I'll leave clues. Let her think she's winning. Then I'll remind her who's in charge. I handed the notebook to Officer Lang. Ma'am, I think your son was planning something, he said. This reads like a trap. A psychological setup. It wasn't just control anymore. It was revenge. Matthew knew I was gathering evidence. And instead of running, he was staging a scene. For what? I wasn't sure. But I felt it, something was coming. When I returned home, the first thing I did was go upstairs to Matthew's old room. It was clean. Too clean. The bed was stripped. The desk drawers were empty. Closet wide open. He had taken his clothes, but left the picture of me and Thomas on the dresser. I stood there staring at it. The photo of us at our 25th anniversary, all smiles. And taped to the back was a note, written in red ink. I'm not done, Mom. You thought you were playing the long game, but I wrote the rules. That night, as I sat on the porch with a flashlight, thinking through every detail, I remembered something strange. The heater vent in his bedroom. He used to stuff wrappers and junk down there. Always complained about the cold draft. I went back upstairs, unscrewed the panel, and there it was, a large envelope, thick with papers, sealed with tape. I opened it. Inside were printouts of my bank statements, screenshots from my old Facebook account, copies of emails I didn't even remember sending, a photo of me walking out of Sister Alma's shelter. He'd been watching me for months. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was proof. Matthew wasn't just trying to destroy my spirit anymore. He was planning to destroy my name. I thought I had escaped. I thought I had broken free. But yesterday, tucked inside a hidden envelope, I found something that stopped me cold. A one-way train ticket to Maple Hollow, dated for today. Matthew was coming back. I looked at the wall clock. 10:16 a.m. The train from Charleston to Maple Hollow arrived at 3:20 p.m. That gave me 5 hours. 5 hours to decide. Do I call the police and have him picked up at the station? Do I run? Or do I stay? I had every right to be terrified. But instead, something inside me hardened. I was done running. I was done being afraid in my own house. I closed every blind, locked every door. I moved important documents, the notebook, the letters, my recordings into a bag, and gave them to Miss Ruby, my neighbor. If anything happens, you give these to Officer Lang. She held my hand, trembling. You sure you don't want me to stay with you?
No.
He needs to see me alone. Just once. Then I'll end this. She hugged me like it might be the last time. I sat at the kitchen table, the very same place where, just months ago, Matthew had ordered me to eat off the floor like an animal. Now I waited for him. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every engine outside sounded like a train pulling in. At exactly 3:44 p.m., I heard it. 3 knocks at the front door. Not frantic. Not hesitant. Deliberate. I stood up slowly, walked down the hallway, and opened the door. There he was. Matthew. He had lost weight. His beard was patchy. His eyes were sunken, but sharp. Too sharp. He smirked.
Hi, Mom.
Miss me? I said nothing. I stepped aside. No hug? No. How have you been? After all, I'm your only son. He walked in uninvited, like it was still his house. Like I was still the woman he could push, break, control. But I wasn't. We sat across from each other, just like that last breakfast, the one before I called the police. Only this time there was no coffee. No food. Just silence. You called the cops on me, Mom, he finally said. That was low. I met his gaze. You forced me to eat off the floor like a dog, Matthew. He leaned forward. You started spying, recording, sneaking behind my back. What kind of mother does that? I didn't blink. What kind of son gives his mother bruises? That landed. He sat back, eyes darting toward the hallway. You think you won? You think you're safe now? I slowly reached into my pocket and placed the voice recorder on the table. Why don't you tell that to this little device? Just like old times. His smile cracked. Before he could speak again, I reached for my cell phone. I already spoke with Officer Lang. He's expecting your arrival. If you don't leave right now, I'll hit one button and have him here in 5 minutes. Matthew stood up. His hands were shaking. I didn't come to fight, Mom. I came because... He trailed off. Because what? I asked, rising to meet him eye to eye. He swallowed hard. Because... I found something. What do you mean? He hesitated. It's about Dad. You don't know the whole story. Hello again, my dear. This is Evelyn Carter, and today I'm about to share something I never expected. Not in 1,000 years. For months, I've told you how I survived emotional and physical abuse at the hands of my son, Matthew. How I escaped, documented, and stood up for myself. How he came back. But this next part? It's the part one never saw coming. Because when Matthew returned, he didn't just bring threats. He brought a cassette tape. And when I pressed play, my husband's voice filled the room. Matthew handed it to me carefully, almost cautiously. It was labeled in Thomas's neat handwriting. For Evie, if you ever need the truth. I stared at it for a moment before reaching into the kitchen drawer and pulling out Thomas's old cassette player. I hadn't touched it since before he passed. I pressed play, and Thomas's voice, so familiar, so gentle, came through, scratchy and slow. Evie, if you're hearing this, something went wrong. I hoped I'd never have to explain this, but I can't leave you in the dark forever. I felt my breath catch. I've been hiding something. Something about Matthew. Something from long before he ever raised his voice to you. Matthew sat across the table from me, stone-faced. It started when he was 16. I caught him hurting animals, Evie.
Strays.
Barn cats. I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was a phase. I told him to stop. Threatened to send him to counseling. He promised he would change. I gasped. My hand covered my mouth. But it got worse.
He lied. He stole.
And then one night, he got into a fight behind the churchyard. Another boy, Tyler, ended up in the hospital. I buried it, Evie. I paid off the sheriff's cousin. I thought I was protecting him. The room went cold. I thought if we just loved him enough, he'd turn out all right. But I see now. I was enabling him. We both were. He learned early that there'd be no consequences. And by the time I realized what we'd created, it was too late. If I'm gone and Matthew becomes dangerous to you, promise me you'll remember this. It's not your fault. You loved too hard. I enabled it for too long. But you still have a chance to save yourself. Don't let him take your light, Evie. Not like he took mine. The tape stopped. Silence. I sat frozen in my chair, heart pounding like a hammer in my chest. Is it true? I whispered. Matthew didn't answer at first. Then he smirked. I always wondered if he'd tell you. You hurt people? My voice cracked. I was made this way, he snapped. You and him. You babied me, coddled me. What did you think I'd become? I stood slowly, my hand trembling. Get out. Or what? You'll call the cops again. I reached into my apron.
The recorder was on.
Everything had been captured. Go ahead, I said. Deny it on tape like you did before. He stepped toward me. You think this is over, don't you? Do you think that tape changes anything? I held my ground. You're wrong, Mom, he whispered. You've only seen the beginning. And with that, he turned and walked out. After he left, I sat in the quiet and wept. For the boy I thought I raised. For the man my husband had tried to save. For the woman I used to be. And then, I remembered something. A small locked fireproof box hidden in the back of Thomas's workshop cabinet. I hadn't opened it in years. I wiped my face, grabbed the keys from the drawer, and went outside to the shed. Inside the box, there was no money, no documents, just a worn manila folder, and a single Polaroid photo. What I saw in that photo shook me to my core. You've walked with me through fear, control, and the unraveling of truths I never wanted to know. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found in that fireproof box. My name is Evelyn Carter, and what I'm about to share will forever change how I see my son and my husband. Because when I opened that folder, the first thing I saw was a photograph. A photo of Matthew, no older than 18, standing in a field, grinning like he'd won something. Beside him was a gravestone, freshly set, and the name on it wasn't familiar. The gravestone read, Tyler James Whitmore, 1988 to 2004. Beloved son and brother. My blood ran cold. Tyler. The name sounded familiar, like something whispered years ago in church bulletins and neighbor gossip I never paid attention to. Wasn't that the boy from town who had disappeared?
Yes.
That's what it was. He didn't die in an accident. He vanished. And now here he was on a gravestone in a photo with my son. Smiling. Hands shaking, I flipped through the folder. Inside were a newspaper clipping from 2004, teen missing after school fight. A handwritten note. We were just messing around. He slipped. That's all. And a map, hand-drawn, with an X marked in a wooded area just outside of Maple Hollow. Written beneath the X were 3 chilling words. Still out there. I stared at it in horror. Was this a confession? A taunt? Or a breadcrumb meant for me? Why would Thomas keep this? Why didn't he ever tell me? I sat on the back porch with the photo in my lap and tried to picture Thomas writing his letters, storing this folder, deciding to say nothing. Was it guilt? Was it protection? Or was it fear? I closed my eyes and imagined his voice. We created him, Evie, but we don't control him anymore. The next morning, I went straight to Sister Alma's house. She took one look at the photo and covered her mouth. Tyler Whitmore? My God, that family moved away after he vanished. They never got closure. Said the police found nothing. I showed her the map. She went pale. Evie, this might not just be about survival anymore. This might be about justice. For more than just you. We decided to call Detective Lang. He told me to meet him in his office, alone, and bring everything. In the police station, I handed over the photo, the documents, and the tape of Thomas's voice. Lang's jaw tightened as he looked at the photo. If this is what I think it is, your son may have been involved in something we never closed. Detective, I whispered, is it possible that my husband knew and just let it go? He sighed. Sometimes people protect the wrong ones. Sometimes they carry that to the grave. He looked me in the eyes. We're opening a cold case, Mrs. Carter, and your son just became the center of it. I returned home feeling sick. I needed air, so I stepped outside, walked to Miss Ruby's porch. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said gently. I think I have, I replied. I think I raised one. When I got back to the house, something felt off. The front door was slightly ajar. I stepped in, slow, cautious. My bag, the one I gave to Miss Ruby to hold, was on my kitchen table. Opened. And empty. Once again, my name is Evelyn Carter, and I thought the worst was behind me. I survived emotional abuse. I reclaimed my home. I stood up to my son, Matthew. And I uncovered a truth my late husband tried to keep buried. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment I found my bag of evidence, emptied, opened, and laid neatly on my kitchen table. Pinned to the fridge with a magnet was a single note. You shouldn't have gone digging, Mom. Now, let's see how it feels when the one being watched is you. I stood frozen in my kitchen. Every window was shut. Every door was locked. Nothing broken. No sign of forced entry. And yet someone he had been inside. Inside my house. Inside my safe place. That night, I double-locked the doors and jammed a chair under the knob. I barely slept. At 2:42 a.m., I heard a faint creak from the hallway. Just one. I sat up, heart pounding. It was followed by silence. I told myself it was the house settling, until I noticed the draft. The window in the hallway, the one that never opens properly, was slightly ajar. The next morning, I called Sister Alma, then Miss Ruby, and we drove straight to the electronics store. I bought a small indoor security camera, one with motion detection and cloud storage. Miss Ruby helped me set it up in the living room, pointed at the front door, angled slightly toward the hallway. We didn't tell anyone. Not the police. Not the neighbors. Not even Detective Lang. Because if Matthew was watching me, then I wanted to start watching him. That night, I left the lights low, pretended to sleep on the couch with the TV humming, but I kept my phone in hand, screen open to the live feed. At 1:17 a.m., the motion alert buzzed. I looked. The hallway was empty. And then, from the side of the frame, a shadow moved.
Tall. Thin.
Pausing at the edge of the camera's field of view. It stood there, watching me sleep, for nearly 30 seconds. Then it backed away, not toward the door, but toward the hallway, deeper into the house. I waited until daylight. Heart racing, I checked every room. Everything looked untouched, until I opened the hallway closet. At the back, behind the coats and old winter boots, was a single cigarette butt, still faintly warm. He had been hiding in there, while I was in the house, while I was awake, while I was pretending to sleep. This time, I called Detective Lang. He came with 2 officers, reviewed the footage, collected the cigarette for DNA, and put out an alert for Matthew's apprehension. He's not just stalking now, Lang said grimly. He's escalating. But before he left, he asked me, "Have you noticed anything else missing?" I hadn't. Not until that evening, when I sat down at the kitchen table and realized the cassette tape, Thomas's voice, his final words to me, was gone. Once again, my name is Evelyn Carter, and this is the end of my story. Not the end of my fear. Not the end of my grief. But the end of his hold on me. When we left, I'd found a note on my kitchen table. My late husband's cassette tape, the one with his final words, had been taken. In its place was a message, written by Matthew. "If you want to hear Dad's voice again, come to the place he always took me." There was no address.
Just a time.
Midnight. It didn't take me long to figure it out. When Matthew was a boy, Thomas would take him to a small creek near Miller's Ridge, a quiet patch of woods where the water ran shallow and clean. They used to call it the place where nothing talks. It was isolated, peaceful, and now possibly deadly. At 11:52 p.m., I parked my car on the dirt trail and walked toward the clearing. I didn't bring a weapon. I brought the voice recorder, just in case. And tucked inside my jacket pocket was a letter, written to the police, detailing everything. If I didn't come back, I wanted the truth to survive. I reached the clearing. It was quiet. Too quiet. And then I saw him, Matthew, standing beneath a crooked pine tree, holding a small tape player in his hand. The cassette, Thomas's tape, was already inside. He was pale. His eyes were wild and sunken. Hair matted. Dirt on his boots. "I knew you'd come," he said softly. "You always come when I call." I stood my ground. "I'm not here for you, Matthew. I'm here for that tape." He smiled. Empty, hollow. "You want to hear it again? Want to hear how Dad thought I was a monster? How did he give up on me?" He raised the player, finger hovering over the eject button. "He didn't even try to fix me, Mom. Neither did you. You just watched me rot." I stepped closer. "No," I said. "I watched you become what you chose to be." He laughed, broken and bitter. "You know what it feels like? To have both your parents give up on you." I swallowed hard. "I never gave up on you, Matthew. That's the problem. I should have." Silence. The woods held their breath. "Give me the tape." He stared at it, like it was the last piece of something worth clinging to. Then, slowly, he extended it. I reached out, and he dropped it to the ground.
And stepped on it.
The plastic cracked. The tape inside snapped. Now no one hears Dad's voice again, he whispered.
Not you. Not me.
A pair of headlights suddenly cut through the trees. Red and blue lights behind them.
Detective Lang.
Miss Ruby had followed her gut and my parked car and called in the cavalry. 2 officers approached from behind. Matthew didn't run, didn't speak. He just dropped to his knees in the grass. They cuffed him, read him his rights, and walked him away. He didn't look back. Not once. It's been 6 months. Matthew was charged with stalking, breaking, and entering, and has now been named a person of interest in the cold case of Tyler Whitmore. They found something near the spot marked on the map Thomas kept. I won't describe it. Some truths are better whispered than spoken. I never got Thomas's tape back, but I remember every word. And in the quiet, when I sit by the window and watch the wind move through the trees, I still hear his voice. You've always been stronger than you know. If you're listening to this and you're scared, if someone in your life makes you feel small, invisible, or unsafe, let me say this. You are not weak for loving them, but you are strong for letting go. I did. And now I walk freely in my home, with the lights on, with the windows open, with the locks on my terms. This has been my story, my survival, my truth. If Evelyn's journey moved you, drop a comment. Let her story be a light for someone else in the dark. Subscribe to True Tapes for more true stories of resilience, revelation, and rising again. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes after a storm. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of shame, but the stillness that follows survival. That's the silence I live in now. For years, I kept my story locked in the corners of my home, in the floorboards that creaked under quiet footsteps, in the cabinets where bruises hid behind sugar jars, in the hallway mirror that reflected a stranger wearing my skin. I didn't speak because I believed silence was strength. That endurance meant winning. But silence isn't healing. It's just the echo of pain trying not to be heard. I tell my story now not because I am brave, but because I am finally tired of being quiet. Because somewhere, there's a woman with soft hands and tired eyes, washing dishes while swallowing her scream. There's a grandfather brushing crumbs from a table that no one thanks him for. There's a soul in shadows, whispering, "This can't be all there is." To you I say, you are not too late. You are not too broken. And you are not alone. What was taken from you does not define what still belongs to you. And sometimes the most radical act of love is choosing to live. I'm not just someone's mother,
Not just someone's wife.
not just someone's bruised memory. My name is Evelyn Grace. I earned that name back one breath at a time. And now I pass the story on not as a wound, but as a seed. Let it grow in you. Let it bloom into something louder than silence. If this story touched something deep in you, I ask gently, like a friend across a porch swing, to leave a comment, to press the little heart, to subscribe if you'd like to hear more voices like mine. Because every story kept alive becomes a lantern for someone still in the dark. This is my goodbye for now. Not from the world, but from the part of me that once believed she had to disappear to be safe. Tonight, I turned off the porch light, not because I fear who's coming, but because I'm finally home, and morning is just around the bend. Good night, my dear. Be gentle with yourselves. Evelyn Grace, survivor, storyteller, reborn.